East Evergreen Rotary Club. He works closely with youth through the Interact Club and has devoted his life to empowering youth through service. Please give it up for Nick Leon.
So I'm so happy to be here. What do we need? Oh, clicker. Now that I have my clicker, I'm ready to go. I was going to say, it's such an opportunity, great opportunity for me to be here. Has anybody heard me speak before? Couple. Anybody hear the geese story? Honk, honk. Okay, so the reason I say that is I was told my goal as I looked up there, what to say, we're supposed to motivate. What else? Motivate, inspire, and advise. Now, my sense is you need about as much motivation. Gee, I can't think of anything or any group of people that are more motivated than you. I know all of you are working in doing service, right? Community service, making a difference in the world. I mean, you're already motivated. If I thought I could actually motivate you anymore, I think I could walk on water. Okay, so I'm not going to really motivate you. What I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to tell you a little story. I want to do the goose story, but I'm sure I'm going to run out of time. So I'd like to tell you a little story. A long time ago, a young boy of about in the 4th grade was in school, and it happened to be a Catholic school. He was going to school, and the teacher was talking to them about religion and so forth, and we were told that if you committed a sin, a mortal sin, you would have to burn in hell forever and ever and ever. And there was a little kid in the classroom, and he said, Sister,
thanks for understanding.
Raised his hand, said, Sister, I don't know, do you burn in hell forever and ever and ever? And she said, yes. And said, well, and then the nun proceeded to tell us that God was 100 times better than your parents, more loving, 1,000 times better, 1,000,000 times better, 1,000,000,000,000 times better. And little Nicky goes, Sister, my mother would never have me burn in hell forever and ever and ever. And she looked at me and then she said, Class, how long will you burn in hell if you commit a sin? And the class said, so then, that wasn't very loud, and I said, Sister, you said that God was 1,000 times better than my parents, 1,000,000 times better, 1,000,000,000 times better. And I was just going to say something else, and she said, Class, how long will you burn in hell if you commit a mortal sin? And they said, you guys would have failed 3rd grade. Forever and ever and ever. And then I raised my hand again, and she said, "Class, how long will you burn in hell?" And then they really got into it, and they said, so I sat down. That's when I first found out that sometime in college, that maybe what I was going to do. I eventually became a teacher, but has anybody ever heard of epistemology? The word? I think I put it up there. Oh, I got to do the little tweeter here. Where do we point it? Got it? Okay. Does it say epistemology up there? Yes. That's a big word, right? It's part of when you go to college, if you take some philosophy courses, but it's about how do you know what you know? And so here's, little Nicky is in 3rd grade, and he deducts that, if God is this loving, would you burn you in hell forever and ever and ever? He didn't know he was becoming an epistemologist. You, as in your community service, if you think about it, how do you know what you know? And how do you know that, in a sense, you're doing the right thing? In other words, do you know that in some schools, if I asked you how long has man been on earth, you would say, how long? Give me a number of years. Could someone shout out, how long has man, in our evolutionary process, when does man get on earth?
2018 years. 2018 years.
2018. Okay, some people, he said 2018, some people might say 1 million or 2 million. Some people might say, oh, it's only 6,000 or 10,000. And they make this decision because of some, they took out who begot who in the Bible, and then they figured out that the earth must be about 6,200 years old. Now, if you are in a California school, you would probably, your teacher would say it's 1 million, 2 million years old that man has evolved to where he is today. Now, how do you know any of that? How do you know any of that? You know it through, either thinking about it or hearing about it or facts. And let me give you an example you might follow. Do many of you watch TED Talks? Would you raise your hand if you have TED Talks? Okay, great. So, there's a great TED Talk. I recommend you watch it. It's called Rat. Do we see it up there? It's actually Rat Park. Okay? Now, most of us think that if somebody comes up to you and says, hey kid, you want some heroin, huh? I got some good stuff. This is going to make you feel good. And then if you take this drug, all of a sudden you're going to be hooked on it, right? You know what? It doesn't quite work that way. But this is what the guy did in Rat Park. He put rats in cages, and he gave them water, and he gave them water that had drugs in it. And then he watched the sink. 5 minutes left? Okay, gee, I wasted my time. He then put the rats in there, and guess what? They all became drug addicts. They drank the drug water until they died. Then he took another bunch of rats and he put them in this big, beautiful cage. A cage where there's other rats. There's plenty of food. There's, like a park atmosphere. And you know what? The rats drank the water. They didn't drink the drug water. So he started thinking, you know what? The reason these rats were drinking the drug water was because they were in these little small cages. They weren't around any other rats. They were isolated. They didn't have any social life, and they turned to drugs. And then he concluded that that's the problem with people. Drug addicts, and this is how he decided this. You know that the soldiers who came back from Vietnam, many of them were addicted to drugs. Many of them. And when they came back to the United States, they stopped using drugs and they became good citizens. Now, some of them still remain drug addicts. Maybe the ones who went back into the ghettos and back to Clark. So, if you learned anything from this part of it, it's that the environment you put people in is what makes them who they are. Now, if you look at that TED Talk list and you maybe make a few notes of it, you'll see that is where I'm heading you to. So what I'd like you to do is think about epistemology, the idea of how do you know what you know? The idea that if you think drug addiction is caused because you give people drugs, if you change your thought and realize that drug addiction is probably caused by the environment you put people in, and because you are probably all college-bound students, if you want to change the addiction problem, what do you have to do? It probably would sound like change the environment they're in, right? Okay, so what I was going to suggest you do, this is the motivation part, continue doing your community service, make a difference by changing people's lives where they are. And you will then, of course, accomplish your goal. That was the part that was supposed to be motivating. Continue doing what you're doing. And I'm going to close by saying, imagine that there's these 3 real wise men are out fishing and they know they have to stop because the greatest yoga, the guru of all gurus, was going to visit their village. And they were out there fishing and they lost track of the time. And they said, oh, we got to hurry back or we're going to miss them. And as they're rowing back, they see the guru walking across and he's leaving the village. And they go, Master, wait, we want to talk to you. And they jump out of the boat and they start walking on the water. And you know what the master told them? He said, just keep doing what you're doing. Because they were walking on water. You get the idea? You people, you need to keep doing what you're doing and doing your community service and making a difference. Thank you.